Ar-Pharazôn, king of Numenor, sets sail for the Undying Lands with the great armament. Sauron, having slowly gained the confidence of the king, dominates his councils and successfully urges Ar-Pharazôn the Golden to make war on the Valar to obtain the unobtainable, everlasting life. The Valar refuse to fight and lay down their government of Arda in a call to the One, Eru Ilúvatar. Some take this to mean the Valar were afraid of the greatest force that had ever been assembled. This video will attempt to outline the reasoning behind the actions of the Valar, their choice to call upon God for assistance, leading to the destruction of Numenor as it was taken beneath the waves, leading to the changing of the world. While the reasons behind the futile attempt to obtain everlasting life through a fear of death is a fascinating topic of discussion, and one that will be discussed in other videos, I will really be dedicating this video to the reaction of the Valar to the assault from Numenor. To start with, I think the scale of the great armament that the king had assembled should not be understated. Preparations for this fleet began in the year 3310 of the Second Age, and it set sail 9 years later. We are given a colourful description of this vast force. In that time, the fleets of the Númenóreans darkened the sea upon the west of the land, and they were like an archipelago of 1,000 isles. Their masts were as a forest upon the mountains, and their sails like a brooding cloud, and their banners were golden and black. Due to the nature of Tolkien's writing, and especially in the Silmarillion, exact numbers are rarely given. Instead, we are treated to a description that has us picture an incomprehensible vastness, an immense fleet. The ships surrounded Tol Eressëa, the large island off the coast of Eldamar. Yet for all the strength and power being displayed through its glorious military, it still paled in comparison to the inherent power of the Valar, the powers of the West. Their own power is something that cannot be replicated through ships or weaponry. The Valar were not afraid of what this gargantuan fleet could do to them, but they were aware that it was strong enough to harm Valinor and its other inhabitants, causing great strife. Faced by this rebellion of appalling folly and blasphemy, and also real peril, since the Númenóreans directed by Sauron could have wrought ruin in Valinor itself, the Valar lay down their delegated power and appeal to God, and receive the power and permission to deal with the situation. The old world is broken and changed. Could the Valar have just destroyed the entire fleet? It's certainly plausible. When the land later known as Numenor was made for the Edain to dwell in, it was raised by the Maiar, Ossa, from the depths of the great water. This means physically raised. Ossa rejoices in the winds of Manwë, for in storms he delights, and he laughs amid the roaring of the waves. Next in might to Manwë is Ulmo, the Lord of Waters, and it is said that despite his love for the children of Eru, his coming fills them with great dread. For the rising of the King of the Sea was terrible, as a mounting wave that strides to the land. Do we need to imagine what these two figures alone could unleash through the authority that they hold over the sea? This is not taking into account other powers dwelling in the uttermost west. Would they do such a thing? Evidently not. We are told that what was occurring during this assault was appalling folly and blasphemy. The Valar were disheartened and had to appeal to the greater authority due to being in a completely unknown situation with grave consequences through action or inaction. None of the Valar, including the king of the Valar, Manwë, fully knew the mind of Eru. It was a problem that required guidance. While both elves and men are children of Iluvatar, men came after the awakening of the elves, and were not created in such familiarity as the elves. The Ainur, that includes both the Valar and the Maiar, dealt mostly with the elves, and shared in a similar nature, whereas men were given strange gifts, hinting that their true purpose was beyond the understanding of even the Valar. This is because Eru blessed men with the virtue of being able to shape their own lives beyond the music of the Ainur, while elves are tied to the world, given the greatest bliss. Men are given the will to seek beyond the world and the music. Their path is unknown, their purpose determined through deeds and will. I discuss this in my video of Rings of Power and Immortality. To the Valar, this is as difficult to fully comprehend as it would be to the elves, both of whom are tied to the world, linked to the great music. For it is said that after the departure of the Valar, there was silence, and for an age Iluvatar sat alone in thought. Then he spoke and said, "Behold, I love the earth, which shall be a mansion for the Quendi and the Etani. But the Quendi shall be the fairest of all earthly creatures, and they shall have and shall conceive and bring forth more beauty than all my children, and they shall have the greater bliss in this world. But to the Etani I will give a new gift." Therefore he willed that the hearts of men should seek beyond the world, and should find no rest therein, but they should have a virtue to shape their life amid the powers and chances of the world, beyond the music of the Ainur, which is as fate to all things else, and of their operation everything should be, in form and deed, completed, and the world fulfilled unto the last and smallest. Now that an army of the Second-born was on their doorstep, the Valar deemed it an issue above what seemed appropriate for them to judge. Do they slay countless men to save Valinor and the elves dwelling there? Do they let the children battle it out? Do they directly appear before them in forms of majesty, asking or commanding them to return east, even after countless warnings sent to the isle itself before the fleet set sail? Should the men be allowed to fulfill their own destiny? Would killing them in some way go against their purpose according to the designs of Eru that were unknown to them? So many questions, with answers contradicting other answers. Action or inaction could be disastrous. Appealing to authority does seem like the wisest choice, a desperate choice in a desperate situation. There is also the problem of the Valar themselves, and how they perhaps understood their own part in this problem to begin with. The Edain had been evacuated from Beleriand at the end of the First Age, and given sight of the Blessed Realm from the home they now called Numenor. They were then given a ban on approaching it, while receiving immortal guests, bearing tidings and gifts, never changing as new kings waited to receive them. Over many years, man was to accept the gift of death, while also attempting to deal with the corrupting influence of the fallen Valar Morgoth, who had planted the seeds of doubt within them many years before. Now, Sauron was taking advantage of this corruption, bearing his ring of power, a weapon of domination and corruption. We can hardly be surprised that this eventually leads to old men clinging to life in cold halls, surrounded by their ancestors' tombs. It was too easy for Sauron to convince them that taking immortality by force was a sound idea. Thus the Valar appealed to the greatest authority, and this was done through laying down their authority over Arda at this moment, a symbolic act showing how troubled they were in their hearts. The fate of Numenor was then sealed when the king stepped off his ship onto Forbidden Land. Then Manwë upon the mountain called upon Iluvatar, and for that time the Valar laid down their government of Arda. But Iluvatar showed forth his power, and he changed the fashion of the world, and a great chasm opened in the sea between Numenor and the Deathless Lands, and the waters flowed down into it, and the noise and smoke of the cataracts went up to heaven, and the world was shaken, and all the fleets of the Númenóreans were drawn down into the abyss, and they were drowned and swallowed up forever. But Ar-Pharazôn the king, and the mortal warriors that had set foot upon the land of Aman, were buried under falling hills. There it is said that they lie imprisoned in the caves of the Forgotten, until the last battle and the day of doom. In a way, the Valar were scared of the Númenóreans, but not of their fleet. They were forced to plead for help in the face of making a judgment they felt was beyond their authority to make. The rebellion, and appalling folly as Tolkien put it, was beyond their comprehension, and in place of words or advice to the Valar, Eru dealt with the situation in a swift and brutal fashion, forever changing the world, and changing how the Valar would intervene in the future affairs of Arda.